Every day that Canada Post is delivering packages or delivering anything, they are running a $10 million deficit, which means every day that they're at work, every day, calendar day of the year, they are losing $10 million. That's just against all operating costs, what have you. They're losing money hand over fist. Something to the tune of $814 million has been lost or is in deficit as of right now. Canada Post is basically insolvent, and the government, Canada Post is not necessarily a part of the government. They're called a crown enterprise, so they work independently of the actual governmental system. They're not necessarily getting tax dollars to fund their operations, but they are affiliated, we'll call it like that. The U.S. Postal Service is in a similar situation where they are not technically a part of the government. They are their own company, they are their own entity, but they do have requirements that the government does help fund, at least here in the U.S. Specifically, in the U.S., the Postal Service delivers to every zip code in America. Most carriers do not do that. Why? Because it's extremely difficult and it's extremely expensive. And so Canada Post is under the same requirements, or especially around rural deliveries. Now, Canada's population is very different than the U.S. They live very close to the U.S. border, but there are a lot of zip codes in Canada. So a lot of the rural areas might not see any deliveries for quite some time. They've been impacted. They're going to be the most impacted. So anyways, all that to say that the Canada Post management is in discussions with the Canada Post union, workers union, and there's an impasse, right? The management, the government is wanting to restructure how they're operating. So what the Postal Service has been is delivering letter type mail, smaller individual things that are paid for by a postage stamp. Now, that was a good business. It was very profitable. The problem is we are not sending letters anymore. We're sending parcels. And that requires a different infrastructure as you try to deliver things. So as that parcel volume increases, the letter mail drops off and you have to retool your operation to be profitable in that new environment. The other problem with making a shift of that type is that it is extremely competitive. You have US and other national or other global brands like UPS and FedEx that are delivering already into Canada with their various parcel solutions. There are also other companies that have been grown up domestically in Canada. I'm thinking of Purolator off the top of my head that do those types of deliveries. There's lots of ways to get parcels into Canadian homes, and so Canada Post is going to face an uphill battle trying to be competitive in that market. Now, obviously, they have some significant benefits, some significant advantages, specifically because they're basically going to be backed by the entirety of the Canadian government, but they do need to change and make some really difficult cuts if they want to find a way to solvency, right? If they want to find a way to be profitable. Canadian Postal Workers Union is not willing to budge. I think the Canadian government came back and provided them with a 13% increase in salary across the board. The Canadian Postal Workers Union said, no thanks, we want a higher number. I think it was somewhere between 16 and 19% increase. Although the figures elude me right now, I want to say it's closer to 16 than it is 19. So they're about 3% different, although that does amount to, significant dollars. What does this mean, though, for you? Because most of my viewers are going to be in the U.S. Well, what that means is that about 34% of Canadian e-commerce, specifically e-commerce, comes from the U.S.